another hero maximum.
Righto, welcome back to the Maximum Cricket Podcast, and welcome back Benjamin Stokes to the England World Cup ODI squad. This is episode 65. My name is Munter, and we have Lugsy and Jacko here as always. Today we are talking about England's World Cup squad, New Zealand versus UAE, and why South Africa are picking a domestic T20 league over a test series in New Zealand. But fellas, and perhaps the biggest news in world cricket this week is that Ben Stokes has come out of retirement for one-day internationals and has been included in England's World Cup squad. Stokes has played a total of 10 one-day internationals since he was man of the match in the 2019 World Cup final. Famously retired from the format in July of last year. Jacko, Lugsy, first of all, how are you? And before we dive in, are you surprised Stokes is back?
Yeah, no, going well, mate. No surprise at all. I think everyone knew he was playing this World Cup. I don't think there's anything that sort of indicated he wasn't going to. He's retired. Just wanted a bit of a break from one-day Gert because it was taxing and there wasn't a World Cup last year. So, now there's a World Cup, he feels like he wants to, everyone else is out playing on the street and he's sitting at home going, oh, shit, I want to play too. So he's put his kit on, laced his shoes up, and out he pops into the street, and he's ready to play with the other kids again.
Yeah, well summed up. Firstly, going well, obviously on the back of a big Sugar Sean O'Malley knockout victory yesterday. Still running pretty high off that, so happy days. But yeah,
quite a bit of sugar in support of him as well, from what I saw.
Yeah, that's just I've been preparing for this for years for the sugar takeover. Ahead of the game on that. But yeah, I think it's one of those things with Stokes. Yeah, that was like not surprising at all that he's came out back for this because it's like it's got to that age now where he's like, that's so tempting when he's still hitting it well to be like, do I just get this in? Because I'm sure this will be the last. So it's like, do they want me? They will. Do I just get this in? And I haven't had to really stress the body with one-day cricket for a couple of years. So yeah, not too surprised that he's made the call to jump back in and try and get one last bit of silverware.
Yeah, it's easy to not want to play when the games don't mean anything and it's just bilateral stuff after bilateral stuff. But then when you start to build for something that people are excited for and you're at home and you could contribute, that's when it gets a little bit tough. I'd be surprised if this wasn't the plan the whole time.
Yeah, should have Trent Bolt just done this a while back for us? Oh yeah, I'm actually just retired from these games. Oh yeah, I'm back now. Don't worry about it. Just saved us all a bit of stress and a few conversations.
Yeah, it's worth a shout. I mean, he effectively did it instead of going, yeah, I'm just not playing. He's just going, oh yeah, I won't play for New Zealand anymore. But yeah,
I'm retired from one days that don't mean anything. So
some of the All Blacks only doing a Kaporo Pungo when it's a big game. Stokes only plays ODIs when it's a big game. Shout out Dylan Blythe.
How good must it be when like you're receiving that haka and they don't do the big one? You say, it's not a big game, bastards.
Oh well, they don't really rate us, do they? Yeah, well. So Stokes' inclusion has come at the expense of 24-year-old wonder kid Harry Brook, who had quickly become an all-format player for England. Guys, if Stokes is just going to be playing as a batsman, obviously he's got that knee injury, so he's not going to bowl pretty much the whole tournament. So just a batsman, Harry Brook versus Ben Stokes. Who you taking?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it is a tough one, but I suppose, do you take a bloke who's won your World Cup final, won your countless games when the chips have been down? I think, Harry Brook might average 55 at the World Cup but not score a lick in the final, and Stokes might not average a lick at the World Cup and score 100 in the final. And I think that's sort of, you want a guy like that in your team. As long as you think you're going to be in the top four, you've got to have Stokes there come games that matter, when everything's on the line. He's that proven performer, and he's proven to do that time and time again. So, Yeah, it's a bit of a gamble, but I think you're picking your big game players. Sort of LeBron regular season versus LeBron in the finals, isn't it?
It's yeah. I mean, dead right. That's what this comes down to with the Stokes prediction is they're saying, can you give us one or two match winning performances when it matters? I doubt they're thinking he's going to be the leading run scorer in the ODIs, but they're picking if we get to a position where it matters, we believe he can do the job, and so will he. Um, I'm not sure it has to be Stokes versus Brook. I think there's probably a world you can pick both of them and someone else misses out. But obviously, with Stokes coming back and Brook being the one to go, it sort of makes it that 1v1.
Hmm.
Would I be real?
Try to
Brook
name the
wasn't in their
squad.
last ODI series, was he?
Fuck.
Was
I
the
don't have a
Bangladesh
clue. I
series?
don't have a clue when. Oh, he might have been playing
I
Test
don't
though,
think he
because
went
he
to
was in New Zealand.
Bangladesh.
Yeah,
Because he played
Yeah.
yeah.
because that started just after New
Oh,
Zealand
of
series.
course. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
It's a
Right.
good point. It's a good point, Lugsy, on I guess did it have to be Brock? I will just quickly name the squad and see if anyone sort of jumps out at you. So obviously you got Josh Butler, captain, Moen Ali, Gus Atkinson, who never heard of him, but bowls 95 miles an hour, so it must be gun. Johnny Bairstow, Sam Curran, Liam Livingston, David Milan, Adil Rashid, Joe Root, Jason Roy, Ben Stokes, Reese Topley, David Willey, Mark Wood, and Chris Woke. So 9 members returning from the 2019 World Cup. So a lot of experience. So
Good side.
yeah, it's sort of like when you talk about Stokes v Brook, for me, it's proven versus potential. Like
Hmm.
Harry Brook's still unknown at this point, particularly at the one-day level and in India. He obviously had a pretty poor
Yeah.
IPL and struggled against spin. Spin's going to be quite heavily used in this World Cup, you would think. And he's only played 3 one-day internationals, so he's still not quite sure. And whereas Stokes, I think, the resume is starting to stack up at this point. But I do want to play devil's advocate a little bit. Well, not me, but Tim Payne. I just want to hear from the other side of the coin. I don't know if he was just trying to poke fun or trying to like get a row, but here are some of his comments. He basically, this is from his radio show. Ben Stokes coming out of one-day retirement. I found that very interesting. It was a bit of me there, isn't it? I'll pick and choose where I want to play, and when I want to play, I'll just play big tournaments. The guys who have played for 12 months, sorry, thanks, but can you go sit on the bench because I want to play now? What are your thoughts on that? And when is someone going to tell Tim Payne life's not fair?
I was just going to say, welcome to 2023, Tim Payne. Welcome to professional sport.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. If you are good enough to do it like that, you will. Like we've seen it with Stokes, we've seen it with Trent Bolt. Like if you've actually got the talent to be like, you know what, when actually these games do matter, I'm one of the best players in the country. I'm going to play. Then like no shit, you're going to not play these bilateral series and you're going to go do 2020 leagues. Like look at what Bolt did. He was like, look, I know I'm like so needed for this White Ball World Cup. I'm going to go cash in. My life's going to be way better. I'm going to basically be on holiday and be a fast bowler for the rest of my life and play the odd like tournament cricket. Like, of course you're going to do it. Sorry, Tim, that you weren't in that position, but yeah, if a bloke is, he's going to do it 9 times out of 10 and twice on Sunday probably.
Yeah, and look, I don't disagree with. I don't say you can't feel bad for some of these guys that are playing all year round and then miss out on a World Cup, but they'll know as well as anyone that is just the nature of professional sport, and more in this era, especially.
Yeah.
But what I will say is, how does when you said Tim Payne has a radio show, all I thought is how niggly is he going to be just for a couple of hours every Tuesday, Thursday or something? Like he's just going to be the niggliest guy on the radio.
Yeah.
We'll be discussing his takes all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's nailed it. If not everyone can do that, not if you choose to pick and choose when you want to play, your runway, like your margin for error is a lot smaller. But if you're that good, then you can get away with it. Not everyone can do that.
it's not like
Yeah.
he's called the ECB and gone, oh, that World Cup looks pretty fun. Like, do you reckon I can come? Like, Butler's probably been in his ear for months. Like, they've probably like been approaching him. So obviously that's gonna, you know, sway you and be like, okay, like maybe I should give this one more crack. Like, it would be pretty chat to win another one, sort of thing. So I doubt he's just rocked up at England one day training and gone, right, lads, I think I might play this one. I just don't think that's how it sort of panned out. Oh, sorry, Brooksy, we pat on the bum. I'll come in for you now. Like, definitely a lot more to it, and a lot of higher ups probably getting in his ear and trying to persuade him, I'd say.
If The Rock wants to come back for WrestleMania, he'll come back for WrestleMania and he'll fight Roman for the title. I mean, it's simple stuff.
I'm sorry, Cody. You're going to have to wait till WrestleMania
Yeah.
41 before you finish your story. I'm sorry. It's just life. He's a bigger draw. Deal with it.
It's business.
Speaking of like, I guess the value that someone brings to a side, Lugsy, this is probably as good a time as any to introduce our new segment inspired by our very own Simon Lugsy Cromarty. Lugsy, do you care to explain the segment Would You Rather, and was it inspired by Dylan Blythe?
Well, obviously, most people will know if they've had any sort of, I guess, flatting life at all on a dusty Sunday, you just come up with outrageous sort of would you rather's, or sometimes they're known as Blythe scenarios in our world. Some of them won't be for recording, but just your
Good
classic
Facebook page,
would you
that.
rather. It's a great Facebook page. Your classic sort of would you rather, like, would you rather sort of Channing Tatum or Ryan Gosling, these sort of things. But we
Wow.
thought we'd take it to more of a cricket one. Jacko had some sort of idea of like, would you rather see all the times you've dropped catches or all your worst dismissals? Was sort of how, and I took it a bit more seriously and sort of thought, would you rather Ben Stokes or Kane Williamson? So we can take this in a few directions of if you'd rather just for this World Cup, or what they mean to their team, or in a one-off game. Sort of go as you please with that. But would you rather sort of Kane Williamson, Ben Stokes?
Jacko, I'll let you start.
All right. I think for me, my sway on this is the direct result of the 2019 World Cup. I think if we'd won it, England would rather have Stokes back than us have Kane, but because we lost it, we've still got the monkey on the back. Like, we still want to go to India and win it, and Kane is so pivotal to sort of not only us as a one day side as a batter, but I think as a leader as well. So yeah, I think on the serious note, you've got to be sort of all in on us wanting Kane. I think because we haven't won one in a while. But yeah, I mean, Stokes all rounder, good tats, whacks it, bowls quick. So yeah, I mean, I'd rather be Stokes, but I think as a country, we'd rather have Kane.
Vibes is definitely Stokes, but I think the World Cup 2019 sums it up to perfection, because you've got Williamson, player of the whole World Cup, was just unbelievable the whole World Cup, and then you got Ben Stokes, player of the final and the winner.
Yeah.
So I think if it comes down to like a one-off game, I'm going to take Stokes because he can just pull something out of his ass. If the question is who's going to make more runs at the World Cup, I'm probably taking Williamson. So I don't think this is an easy sort of question. And I think the last thing I thought about was who brings more value to their side. And I think because England have so much depth, like they're leaving out Harry Brook, who's, he walks into that New Zealand side like any day of the week. He could retire for a year and come back in at the age of 23 and play. Whereas if Williamson doesn't play, it's probably like a Will Young, who's a very good player, but there's levels to that. So I would say Williamson is more valuable to New Zealand than Stokes is to England's one-day setup.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And probably just to circle back on would I rather be Ben Stokes or Kane, I'm probably just going to need some footage from Kane's most recent birthday, because Ben Fest looked like a doozy. So, I wonder if Kane is any better.
I would say Kane's an underrated sort of stealth sort of. I reckon he could go pretty hard on the booze. I can actually see him smashing down a few health sticks and a couple of beers and just being a little more crazy than people might expect. Because he's
On team,
so dialed in most of his life that I reckon when
yeah,
he gets going, he might just lose control.
yeah, quite
Um,
quickly getting through 8 to 10 silently, and then
yeah,
being
and then
quite boozed out of nowhere.
If anyone has some stories,
yeah,
just go into the
Yeah.
DMs. We'd love to hear it.
would love to.
Anonymously.
I think what's interesting, just slightly getting back to a serious note for a second here, is they're actually, for how different the players they are, they actually sort of like they do a similar thing. Whereas, well, I think both countries, when they're in the crease, feel quite comfortable, and other teams
Mm.
see them as a huge wicket. Obviously, you like Kane and Ben Stokes are going to win you the game in very different ways. But when they're out there, you are thinking like, yeah, right. When Kane's out there, you're like, okay, if he's here at the end, we're safe. He'll time this, we'll win. And when you're playing England, if Stokes is there, you're like, fuck's sake, if we don't get Stokes, we're not going to win this game. So they're quite interesting in the way they're very different, but sort of very similar in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. That's the beauty of the question. So we move on to the
Who just quietly last thing, who do you think's country love is more? Who's more popular with their country?
Stokes.
Because they're both pretty. I guess cricket, yeah.
I think it's his
Yeah.
personality. Like he's more like out there and abrasive. Like he's kind of.
Yeah,
Whereas
probably rated
Williamson's
his-
a little quiet.
yeah, they probably rated his incident too. Like, got real behind his brawl. I reckon deep down, a lot of Englishmen.
Like he's flawed. He's a flawed
think-
individual.
Yeah.
Like he's
Yeah.
more one of
I
us sort
think
of thing.
cricket fans in New Zealand, I think do love Kane. I think he's our
Oh,
sort of
yeah.
god at this point. But
Well, what about who do you trust? Who's more trustworthy? Because I think that's Kane. So I think he's
Yeah.
just like he just never let you down because he's just quiet. Whereas Stokes, he's a bit out the gate at times. Yeah, so give me Kane. Right, let's do the New Zealand UAE series, which features neither of those guys. And before we tuck into the rest of the series, a little top 10 action for the boys. Tim Southee has become the joint leading wicket taker in T20 internationals. He took 5 for 25 in that first T20. So, boys, I want to know if Tim Southee is at 1, who rounds out the top 10 for most wickets in T20 internationals? Little hint I'll give you. You've got 2 bangers, 1 Afghanistan, 1 other Kiwi, 1 Sri Lankan, 2 Pakistanis, an Irishman, and an Indian.
Ooh. Okay, and we're doing 3 lots. Are we doing 3 lots?
Yeah, 3 lice. 3 lice,
Okay.
yeah.
Adil Rashid will be the Afghanistan international.
Well, he plays for England. So
No,
it won't be
sorry.
him.
Rashid Khan is who I'm meaning. Oh,
Yeah. No, Rashid Khan's at 3. I'll give you that.
Is Big
Mohammed
Dog
Sini in
a
there as
freebie
well,
there
too,
again?
probably.
Oh, clip it up. Yeah, clip that.
Fuck!
Is a Freddie in there again? Just quietly.
He is. He's your
on
8.
on the back of
He's
last
your
week.
8 at 98 poles. So he's your 8.
Yeah, he
So
got
it's
in there early.
Pin. Good pin.
98.
Mm,
I'm trying to
thinking
think
for
who's
Bangladesh, Shakib Al Hassan.
Yeah, he's your joint
Old mate has to-
1. Joint 1
Yeah,
at
Malinga
140.
has to be up there, is he?
Yeah,
Who's that?
Lasith will be joint 1.
Lasif has to be
Malinga.
there.
Lasith is at your 5.
Fuck, I thought he might be right up there.
He
Yeah,
was
so
he
right.
was 1 for a while. I think a few others have just passed him. 4 even.
Is the Fizz would be the other Bangladesh player.
That's a top grab. That's your other Bangladesh. So he's at your 7.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Good comeback from
Sneaky
Adil.
player. Where is
So what
Adil
are we?
Rashid
Are we
on the
5?
top on the list actually, just to make sure he's not snuck into the top 10.
No, it's not. I think he's he might be like 14th or 15th, I think.
Not a bad guess then.
How many we got? 5.
He's actually 13. How many you got? You've got you're missing a New Zealander another Pakistani, an Irishman, and an Indian.
It'll be Bolt with Saudi.
Not Bolt. It's not
Wow.
Bolt. Not Bolt.
T20.
Famously retired, that's why.
Yeah, greedy. So we've got how many lives? Because we've got two
two lives. Yeah, two lives, yeah. Let you off with a dill.
Are we
Um,
are we spinner for us?
Oh, I can't answer that.
Are we
oh,
it
surely
must be Saudi, is it?
Oh,
It is Saudi. He's your fourth.
Oh, that's not
I
bad.
was like, is he
118.
four?
Yeah, he's up
Is he
there.
four ever? That's not bad.
Yeah, because he plays a lot. He
Uh,
plays a lot for T20s.
Yeah.
So you've
The
got
Pakistani.
Just international, so
Pakistani, one Pakistani, an Indian, and an Irishman. So your sixth of all time, your ninth and 10th. This is where it gets real tough.
Yeah, I mean,
you'd think you'd know. You'd think.
India's so
Sorry,
many
go.
choices, isn't there?
all three of them are playing now.
Wow.
Do we think Indian? Are we thinking a spinner?
Well, it makes sure. I mean, you just think surely, don't you?
Yeah. And it's got to be one of those two. Surely it's the right armour.
I'm just getting confused with who, like the era of who's played the most T20s.
Yeah.
You got a Pakistani spinner. You've got an Irish seamer, and you've got
Yasir Shah.
I'm probably not.
It's not Yasir Shah.
Oh,
So that is one more life and an Indian
Shit.
spinner.
I'll tell you one. I'd tell you one I don't even want to say, but could be up there. Have we got an Englishman or not?
No. Well, there's one that's
Okay,
tied with. There's one that's tied. Okay, if you can get the Englishman, because he's tied with the Indian. So if you got the Englishman, I'll swap it around.
If it's annoyingly overrated and dangerously crap, Chris Jordan, that will get me.
It is Chris Jordan. He's tied.
They picked him every fucking series.
That's a great
mini
pin.
series.
Unbelievable. We'll swap them out. So the other one was Chahal. So we won't worry about him.
My Chahal, good player.
Yeah. So we've got an Irish seamer, a Pakistan spinner, who's actually an all-rounder as well, as Shahid Afridi.
And what, he's still playing?
He's still playing. And he's one of the best T20 players in the world.
Yeah. This is going to crush me.
Bowls leg spin.
I'm just flat out not. Yeah, I'm not going to get the Irish guy.
Nah, that's a tough one. Depends how hard you follow Irish cricket.
Not very.
Yeah, I feel like if you followed them at all, you'd get there because he's probably the big dog. But
I literally think I know one person that plays for Ireland. So I don't think it's
right. Let's get the Paki. Let's get the Paki leg spinning all rounder.
Yeah, what's his name?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. What is his name?
This is gonna be poor for the socials. This is gonna be embarrassing.
At least it's not Kumar.
Right. Do you want me to roll out the answers?
Yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to get it.
Okay. All right. Okay. So your Pakistani is Shadab Khan. No.
You can't.
I was going to make a guess at the Irishman if we were going to.
Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say Kevin O'Brien. Is it Kevin O'Brien? But probably
it's not. It's Mark Adair.
My Mark. Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Shut up, Khan.
So good kid.
Let's sum up these results.
I could see Shadab Khan in my head and just couldn't give you his name.
Yeah, I felt like you guys knew who I was talking about, but you just couldn't get the words out, which can happen in the arena.
You can.
As you've mentioned, it's tougher than it looks. Tougher than it looks.
Maybe a first Patreon live, we get a listener in just to really test them out.
Put them on,
Yes.
put them on the spot. Funny they nail
Yeah,
it.
whoever's
Too.
come at me the hardest, just we'll get them on.
Lucky boy. Right. The T20 series between New Zealand and the UAE finished up with New Zealand winning 2-1 this morning. First T20, New Zealand won by 19 runs. Seifert made 55, and Tim Southey, as we mentioned, took 525. Second T20 was a big occasion as UAE beat New Zealand by 7 wickets with 20 plus balls to spare. Chapman made 63 or 46 in a loss, but he and New Zealand were outshone by 17-year-old Ayan Khan, who took 3 for 20, and Mohammad Wasim, who smashed 55 off just 29 rocks. Third ODI, as I mentioned, wrapped up this morning. Chapman made another 50. Will Young joined him. New Zealand made 166, which was the highest score of the series. It was 32 too many, as New Zealand proved too strong in the end. Boys, before we touch on New Zealand, what do you make of this UAE side? Because they are the first associate nation to beat New Zealand in any form of cricket in 38 attempts. Hell of a record, and also good for UAE.
Yeah, I mean, very good. We'll call them chipper, eh? They showed up, they tried hard, and they stole one.
Fuck, that's condescending.
I'd struggle to call this a black cap side, really. But
it's good
no,
stuff.
you know what? They played well. They played who was in front of them, and they got one away in home conditions, which is all you can ask, probably. So, yeah, massive result for them, and probably, their best result maybe ever, and arguably our worst ever, based off of that.
I'll tell you what I liked about the UAE is from the young fella on debut who got 50 to their bowler in this last game giving Seifert a fair send off is they did not come across intimidated by the Black Caps at all. I've seen quite a bit of them just really quite just going at the Caps. So I rated that highly. There should be, like, when you're playing the big nations, hopefully there should just be no fear from these sides. Like, what have they got to lose, really? And I liked it. Take it to the big sides. So I was quite happy with them going hard at us.
Yeah, I mean it's good for cricket. It has to be good for cricket. It shows that there is some serious depth starting to come up, especially in that T20 stuff. It's going to make the T20 World Cup more and more exciting as these associate nations get better. Like we've just finished up a Women's World Cup here, like a Football World Cup, and they're so exciting when you've got so many different like good sides. So I think that's really good for the game, and they had the best kit on show because New Zealand's cricket kit is dreadful.
And their commentator did call Will Young William, which I found really great. Not William Young, not Will Young, not Will. 3 boundaries in a row to William, which I just lost it at.
Who Will I Am? Well, speaking of Will I Am, who stood out for you guys individually from a Caps point of view? Because we talked about it's about ticking boxes and who can sort of nudge their way closer to a World Cup squad or just sort of make a name for themselves. Who stood out for you, Jacko?
I mean, Chapman's probably got to be talked about as that, that guy who's probably starting to really push himself into maybe squeezing himself into the middle order, if not getting himself onto that plane to India, I think. I mean, he's had a great sort of 12 months in T20 cricket, especially at the international level. So good to see him get a few scores. Good to see sort of, the big guys actually like fronting up and playing really well, like Southey sort of 5 first or Santon the ball pretty well overnight. Will Young getting some runs in. So it was good to see some of the more established players that actually sort of tucking in and, getting the job done and getting something out of it. So missing quite a few first choice players, I think 8 in total, but I think we don't really have any sort of firm answers on that spin bowling all-rounder yet. There's some probably, I thought Cole looked like he bowled quite well in the first game, and then a few guys batted okay, but no one really sort of took all 3 games on and said, I'm going to dominate here. So, I mean, Ashok looked like he bowled all right on debut. So some positives to get guys blooded into international cricket. And yeah, some guys sort of maybe just firming up their cases a wee bit, but I don't think anyone sort of really like stamped their mark on the series as such, which was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think, and yeah, as you pointed out, Jacko, we wicket on debut for the young fella, so that's always cool. And even just to get a game and get an experience is awesome. Yeah, I think Chapman was the only one that's probably, I think, really pushing his case now if he has a big series against England. Fortunately, probably more questions sort of left unanswered, if anything. Probably no one really took the ball by the horns and really said you've got to pick me, at least in this England in this next series. As you say, Southey probably showed his class a bit, especially in that first game. Kyle will be good for the 3 runs. Got through all 3 games. I thought he looked a bit short of the gallop, as I said, but I think good to get through the games. And other than that, yeah, Chapman the big winner, but yeah, I'd say they wouldn't be overly happy with this 3-game series, if I'm honest.
Yeah, it's just ticked enough boxes. I think you guys nailed it with Chapman and also just touching on Jameson. I think just getting through 3 games of cricket, I think is a win when you've had a couple of back injuries. So that's cool to see. And I'll just add Will Young, who played the 1 game and made 50. Yeah. Just keeping the pressure on Finn Allen for that ODI spot. So just something to sort of keep an eye on. But boys, moving on to some Test cricket action. We've got some more news coming out that South Africa are looking like sending a very under-strength Test side for their 2-match series in New Zealand this February. The Future Tours program, which was released a year ago plus, I believe, has South Africa to play 2 tests in New Zealand in February of 2024. This week, NZC confirmed those fixtures would be played between February 4th and February 17th. Cricket South Africa plans to send a test squad around January the 28th, but want to send them a week later at the conclusion of their own domestic T20 series. Now, the SA20 should end on February the 4th. Cricket South Africa want the test to start in the middle of February and not the start. New Zealand cricket cannot do that because Australia are touring New Zealand for 3 T20s and 2 tests starting from February 21st and ending on March 12th. The IPL starts on March 20th, so New Zealand cricket cannot push that schedule back any further. South Africa famously defaulted against Australia in some one-dayers recently because of the South African T20 league. All players contracted to South Africa have to play for these franchises, even the South African Test captain. So it's likely South Africa are going to have to send a C, even a D side to New Zealand. So my question, guys, who is the arsehole? South Africa for not sending a decent side, or New Zealand for not moving their test schedule around?
Yeah, I mean it falls on South Africa, I think. Like, if you're going to have such a hard and fast rule, like Aussies don't play the Big Bash, they play Test cricket. Like, whoever tours at that time has to do the same. They can't play in the Big Bash. Like, we have tests going on over the summer all the time. Like, everyone in the world would want their domestic series to be filled with international players. But like, at the end of the day, that just can't work out that way sometimes. Especially, I think, for our side of the world, that like where there's a little bit less freedom, where you've got to play your historic test matches over Christmas when people are off work and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, look, maybe we could have changed the T20s and put them after the tests against Aussie, and some of their IPL players could have got ready for that, and we could have pushed it back a little bit. Like, there is quite a big gap in the international summer as is anyway. So yeah, I mean, maybe we are for being a little bit inflexible, but shit, everyone else doesn't. International cricket sort of comes first and foremost to everyone else. So I don't know why it can't for South Africa.
We'll take the 2 points and fuck off. That's what we'll do.
Well said.
yeah. I think it certainly falls on them.
Jesus, we better win that series.
I mean, no doubt they'll send a few handy quicks. They'll have somehow still have a fiery pace attack.
I thought Bavuma couldn't even get drafted.
Nah, he got picked up like late or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
He probably
Dean
saw
Elgar
he-
might be back.
Yeah, he didn't get drafted. He's like, oh, geez, we better go on tour then. We got to get his test tour in. And then he suddenly got picked up late. And he's like, oh, fuck, whoops. Double booked himself.
I think this is just as we talk about all the time though. This is probably something that's gonna rear its ugly head a bit more. I don't know if you're looking at talking international windows, Munter, because I think that's probably where we're heading eventually. And maybe that, I'm trying to think positively that maybe that becomes a good thing.
Mm.
And this international windows team actually, every sort of team sends their best squad, and maybe those games all have meaning, whether that's points towards the international, the cricket, the test sort of series, or if it's like qualifiers for World Cup. So, more how they do it in football, where each international game sort of rallies towards the Euros or towards the World Cup, and maybe gives them all a bit more meaning. Probably means a lot less international cricket, unfortunately, but maybe the games will mean a bit more. I'm trying to look at it positively, but it's a pretty
Yeah.
rude look, isn't it? Like, it's going to be
Yeah.
a gross summer.
It's one thing
like
like those meaningless bilateral one days, but I think it's when it's Test cricket that it sort of
it
pisses
stinks.
you off a wee bit. But I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think it's because there's too much cricket in general, and at some stage, like Cricket South Africa, they sold their souls to India, who's bought all these teams. They are obliged to have their players there. They don't have a say, and that's sort of
Yeah.
where we're at. So at some
Yeah.
point, there is going to be we're going to have to need an international window, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's going to keep happening.
Yeah, it's a shame that we don't have 11 really good Test players and 11 good T20 players, because I wouldn't mind seeing that Test series happen with the Aussie T20s. Us versus Rabada and the boys during the day, and then watch Fennellan smack around like Paddy Cummins at 7. Just a wee hour off in between. Easy, that'd be good for my February.
I mean, that's where it's.
Yeah, it's a
Oh,
pipe
yeah.
dream, but
Well, that
maybe
could
just
be it.
franchise world T20 cricket.
Let's get it done.
Done.
Right, let's sum up the pod for this week. So that's us for another week. Basically, Ben Stokes can do whatever the hell he wants. It's good to see associate cricket. It's good to see associate cricket doing well, because international cricket means something to them, unlike for South Africa. But thank you to everyone who watches or listens to the show. If you like what we do, check out our Patreon for an extra podcast per week. We play more games like Top 10, and really we just sort of let it fly, so anything can sort of happen. If that's not for you, chuck us a rating and review and help other people find the show. Lugsy and Jacko, thanks as always, and I'll catch you all next week.
Yeah, cheers.